Over the last few months, I've audited around 10 to 15 websites in the professional services niche, and I've noticed two familiar patterns emerging. Firstly, there's the group which don't think SEO is a viable marketing channel for the business, so their website is very content light and doesn't really serve a strategic purpose. Secondly, we have the group which are implementing the completely wrong SEO strategy, and it's causing them to generate informational traffic which aren't ready to purchase or aren't interested in their solution. So in this video, I'm going to show you what's working for us so you can use SEO to gain new clients. Firstly, there's the strategy which seems so simple it can't be true, and that is targeting location and service related queries. These are the locations that people are typing in to find these services, and it's also pre-qualifying them for a certain location or a certain service type which is relevant to your business. But here's the problem, and I spoke about it in the intro. A lot of SEO agencies and a lot of the materials that you can read online advocate creating blog posts to generate new clients. Now, the problem with this traffic, especially for the professional services niche, is that many industry related blogs only serve an audience which is similar to yourself, so other people in that niche, or it's going to generate very informational traffic, so people looking for information about a particular service, or they need to answer a certain question relevant to what they're doing, and they're not actually looking to book an inquiry. But I'm going to be blunt, this very rarely leads to paying customers. So we actually had a client which was on around about a 0.2% conversion rate. And just by focusing and flipping the strategy on its head to focus on more BOFU terms, which means bottom funnel keywords, we were able to raise that in a very short period of time to 0.9%. So I'm going to show you a few things on SEMrush. SEMrush is an SEO toolset which allows me to look at keyword data and look at other websites and see their organic performance. So if we move over to SEMrush here, what I've typed in here is Lawyers Manchester. So what we can see is the 260 volume. There is quite a hard difficulty here, and that can easily be explained as Manchester is a more competitive area than, let's say, a smaller town outside of Manchester. So naturally, the competition is going to be a little bit higher. But let's just hypothetically say we're a law firm in Manchester. To rank for this keyword, we need to create a page which hyper targets this in the H1. So the title of that page is going to be Law Firm Manchester or something very similar to this keyword. And then on that page, we're going to build content that will go over our service types, why we're in relation, where we're based to Manchester. And this will give us a much higher chance of ranking to that keyword. But let's just say, hypothetically, if we're a small law firm in Manchester, it's probably quite unlikely we're going to be able to rank for this keyword immediately. So we might want to focus on other terms, which are what we call longer tail, to give us a higher chance of ranking for those longer tail keywords, to bring in new business at a faster rate. But also what that's going to help us do is rank for more topical authority. So over time, we have the opportunity to rank for this keyword. So I'm going to go to keyword ideas here, and immediately we can see an interesting keywords in this section here. So I'm going to go view all keywords. And what we can immediately see is there's a variety of longer tail keywords which are more specific in their intent. So we can see immigration lawyer Manchester. So this has a good amount of volume, but a pretty high keyword difficulty. But then here we have divorce lawyer Manchester. So if we're doing family law, for instance, this is going to combine the service-led page with a location-based page. And so if we just quickly click on this to take a more detailed look, as we can see, it has around about 170 volume and it has an easy keyword difficulty. So the way we would approach this is by creating a page, again, named Divorce Lawyer Manchester, and we would put our credentials in there, we'd put an FAQ section in there, we'd put a block of content which explains our service. And this is going to give us a much higher chance of ranking over other similar sized law firms or our competitors which haven't set up this infrastructure on their website. I would then map out these keywords into a spreadsheet, something like this, just to help me prioritize what pages I should create first, as obviously we have a limited budget and we need to spread that efficiently. So on here we have the category. So the category being the wider macro service or location that we're servicing. So for instance here, this could be Manchester, then within Manchester there'll be a sub-location within that. Or it could be family law, and then within that we have divorce law, right? And then within that sub-service we'll have a range of different keywords that we can target, and then we can split these keywords and group them together. So why do you want to group certain keywords? Well, there will be certain overlap here, so we would want to target a cluster of keywords rather than just one keyword, but occasionally it isn't worth splitting out these pages. So we could have divorce lawyer Manchester, and then we could also have divorce lawyers for men Manchester, but that doesn't really make sense to create two separate pages as there's a distinct overlap. What would be preferable is to create a subsection, so a H3, a H4, H5, which has a section on divorce lawyers for men and maybe another one for divorce lawyers for women, so we can pick up the search volume related to those terms without creating duplicate content which conflicts with each other, which is another story, but that can also hurt your ranking. A couple of other points I wanted to speak about. Do not neglect Google Business Profile. As we can see here, if I typed in family law in Manchester, which I actually spelt incorrectly, but as we can see here, this section here also is preferable for our business to be ranking at the top here, because we're going to get inquiries from people clicking on here and wanting to look at it from a map perspective. So the way you optimize this is quite simple. You want to make sure you fill out as much information as possible to Google in your Google My Business profile, and you also want to make sure you optimize for reviews, so you include all your testimonials and you encourage other customers to leave reviews for your business. As we can see, it tends to be the businesses which have a higher amount of reviews, have filled out the information correctly, that rank for these type of keywords related to location. A very important point which many people neglect. They kind of just leave their profile bare bones and hope that they're going to rank on Google for certain terms. And secondly, just make sure you actually sell on that page, and I don't mean in a cringy way, but make sure you just have a clear call to action, which is again another thing which professional service niche type businesses neglect. You're not marketing professionals, so it's difficult to understand all the elements that you should have on one of these pages. But we're not just trying to rank, we're trying to gain inquiries, and we can do that by having a clear call us now, email us now in big letters on the page, so it's nice and clear, preferably at the top somewhere and not too far down the bottom. You can have another call to action at the bottom of the page as well when people scroll down, but what you'll find is some people will bounce before they get to the bottom of the page, so it's a good idea to have some indication of booking an inquiry a bit higher up. Now, the second piece of the puzzle is to build more topical authority. Now, you might be wondering where that is, as there's no score for this on SEMrush, and it's actually very difficult to determine how well you're implementing topical authority. But it's essentially how Google perceives your business as a topical expert on your particular subject. So without building this topical authority, you might find that your service and your location pages are indexed, they're on page 2 or page 3, but for whatever reason, they're just not on page 1. And that's where we need to be, especially for some of these location or service related queries, which tend to be lower in volume, especially if they're longer tail. So how would I go about building topical authority in the most efficient way? Firstly, what I would do is start with the keyword research, similarly to what we did for the service and location pages. And I'd make sure I focus on 1 or 2 topics, obviously depending on the budget I have. If I have a huge budget, then I would arguably go after more topics. But if I'm only able to produce a few content pieces per month, I'm going to focus on 1 to 2 topics. So for instance, let's say we use the example earlier of divorce lawyer. And then the way I would find some of those keywords is by going into the keyword tool on SEMrush. If I type in divorce here, and then I go to questions. So what you'll see initially when you go to the page here, you'll see the main keywords, and then we can go to questions, and then we can see what people are searching for on Google. And what I would do is I would group these keywords and I'd prioritize them, but it really shows me what people are searching for and what people want answers to in relation to that main topic. So the more of these questions I can answer in Google's eyes, the more I'm going to be helpful to search intent, the more Google's going to prioritize my website. I would then conduct a gap analysis, looking at what other competitors are doing to rank for that keyword. So what we found here is this was the first law firm that was ranking for the term, how much does a divorce cost? Now, if we click here, it will take us to their blog page and we can analyze this page in detail and see what enabled them content-wise to rank for this keyword. Now, obviously, that's not the only ranking factor. I'm sure this website does have good domain authority as well, and there'll be other factors involved, of course, but it will at least give us a content benchmark and something to aim towards, and it will ensure that we create a similar piece of content which gives ourselves the best chance of ranking. And we can immediately see here that the article is quite in depth. We can look at the word count of the piece. They've got an introduction section. They've then split it out into subsections. And then we can look at things that they're not including here. Now, they clearly have an FAQ section here, but they've got limited imagery. They don't have a video walkthrough. There might be certain things we want to add on top of our article to give ourselves an even better chance of ranking for that particular keyword. Now, you also need to produce this blog content consistently. So I'm sorry, one article on that topic is not going to be enough to rank for keywords within that cluster and then help you indirectly rank your service and location pages. This needs to be a consistent workflow over an extended period of time. So lastly, a couple of housekeeping points. We want to make sure we interlink between all of these pages where relevant. So for instance, for your main service page, you would want to be linking to all your sub-service pages and vice versa. This will pass authority to those pages. Google has what we call a crawl budget for each website. The easier you can make it for Google to crawl your website, the better. It's going to get pages indexed at a faster rate. And of course, that has an indirect effect to building topical authority, making sure we add schema to our pages and add relevant content to that schema. So for instance, just to give you a brief example, you would want to include an FAQ section and then within the page have code there for FAQ schema. What that's going to do is going to say to Google, hey, we're answering these questions as well, which will then allow you to rank for that people also ask section. So this just gives you the opportunity to get more real estate on Google, which again is going to give the opportunity for you to build more topical authority. However, there is one strategy which can be replicated across any professional service type business, and that is listicles. If you're not aware of what a listicle is, it's just an article which runs through a list of items. Now, let me show you some examples. Now, this is one I actually went through today with a decision maker on a call, and they were a cybersecurity consultancy firm, and they were wondering how they could generate new inquiries. They were already quite established in the niche and were ranking for most of the, well, at least they thought was most of the relevant keywords. So the example I showed him on the call was in relation to listicle content, because I noticed that they didn't have any on the website and they weren't ranking for these types of keywords. And typically these keywords relating to best or top. So in this case, it's like top cybersecurity companies, and that opens up the ability to do a listicle and target that content with a listicle because it matches the intent of the keyword. People are looking for a list of items and they want to make a decision from that list of items about what option they pick. So here we can see, obviously we have top cybersecurity companies, top 10 cybersecurity companies, top 50 cybersecurity companies, etc, etc, etc. And the way we would rank for this keywords would be to objectively create an article which highlights what we believe to be the top 10 cybersecurity companies in the UK, but we position ourselves as one of those companies. So the beauty of this strategy is blog content, but it's middle of funnel. So it's targeting most likely people in a decision-making phase, and they're trying to decide which company that they should go with, or at least reach out with a few inquiries to a couple of businesses, but also it attracts the right type of person. So with some of that how-to content that we went through earlier, it is more top of funnel, but also it can attract the wrong type of person, because many people people searching for, complex topics, especially let's give the example of cybersecurity, it's very unlikely that our customer base is going to know all this terminology. So although that there is search volume for some of those more technical terms and for some of those industry related terms, our customer base is unlikely to be searching that. They're more likely to be searching for something simple and easy to understand to make their purchasing decision or their inquiry decision, and that would be looking up the top companies in a particular niche. This is why this strategy can be replicated in most professional service niches, because we're offering a service and people want to weigh up that service against a range of different companies so they can make an astute decision. Now, many people push back with me because clearly they don't want to give their competitors real estate. My rebuttal is always the same. Would you rather that traffic be directed to your website or go to your competitor's website? If the traffic can go to my website, the chances of them converting into an inquiry are far, far more likely than them going to Brainloop or one of these other businesses in the list, because the customer or the user will have to search for the name, find the website, and go through the same process. The fact that you've captured them on the website is already a big win. So you shouldn't worry too much about having your competitors on that page. Now, just to note, it doesn't always have to relate to top 10 companies. It can just be something similar to the service that you provide, where there's search volume. So for instance, here I've typed in best cybersecurity software. I'm sure there's other phrases that people use as well, which is relevant to people trying to make a decision for cybersecurity software. And as you can see, there's some volume here. And although it isn't as in high intent as our best cybersecurity companies, it at least is similar. And again, it tells us that this person is in the market, is pre-qualifying them in the decision-making phase, rather than a how-to guide, which isn't necessarily going to convert into a query on first visit. Now, a couple of other housekeeping notes to mention, specifically in relation to this middle of funnel style content. Make sure you have email capture set up. Most people like to do this in exchange for a newsletter or something similar to that. As many people will be looking for information, they aren't quite ready to pull the trigger, so to speak, and they want to receive continual information from the company because they liked the piece that you did. So this is really important because it will allow us to remarket this data, not only through email, but over time we can build a big enough email list which we can use for platforms like LinkedIn or Facebook. Secondly, make sure you create templates for all of these pages, which will significantly reduce the amount of time you are creating blog pages in your CMS. If you have templates built in WordPress or Squarespace or whatever CMS provider you're using, you could just duplicate these and then build and then paste in the content into that page instead of continually making bespoke pages. In 2025, SEO is not dead for professional service type businesses, which most people want you to believe. But I won't lie to you and say it's got any easier, because in fact it probably has got harder. The algorithms become more sophisticated, which means we need to create more thoughtful content which has a strategic approach rather than just writing anything we want and hoping for the best. If you want us to take a look at your SEO setup and audit your website to spot where the opportunities are, feel free to book a free strategy call in the link in the description. We'd analyze where you stand, provide you with a high-level domain overview, and I will also give you a sample strategy free of charge, which you can take away to implement. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us push this video in front of new people. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.